I'm going to go ahead and share our screen, and you should be able to see our Blackboard class. Can everybody see that Blackboard class?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. I'm going to take a quick picture of it to send to take a photo. Hold on. Done. Take a photo. Hold on. And use photo and send. Okay. All right. So we are looking, I'm going to make sure everybody sees week 2. I have some students who are falling behind already, and we're only in week 3. That concerns me a little bit. So I'm going to make sure that you are looking where we're supposed to be looking. So we just finished week 2, right? So we had some videos to watch and some essays to read. We had 2 quizzes, a discussion board, and a pre-writing exercise. So there were 4 graded assignments in Blackboard. So I want to make sure that everyone, one second, I'm hearing, one sec. I will be recording the live class, but how to watch and how to write an essay outline is a tutorial that's there for you. We're also going to work on how to check grades and feedback. So I'm going to make sure that you've seen that video. I'm actually going to play that video instead of going into the grade book because it takes a little bit of, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt to try to get to that spot. So this is a little faster. You have a quiz on how to check grades and feedback. So I'm going to make sure that you know how to get feedback. I know you know how to look at your grades, but checking your feedback is a little bit different. That's checking on any comment that I put in there that explains why your grade is what it is, right? And we want to make sure that you can check that as well. There's a quiz on the writing process and outlines. Remember, in week 2, there was a video on the writing process, and here in week 3, there's a video on outlines. So make sure you've watched both of those videos before you try that quiz, okay? And then we have a discussion about outlines, and then we have an outline due, okay? So we're gonna start today by looking at some sample outlines. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to open the model outline. You have 2 things. One of them is a model to show you what one would look like when it's finished, so that you can take a look at it. And then what we're going to do is open the outline form and kind of create one together, so that you can create your own while I'm creating the one together, so you can get some of that outlining done while you're here in class today. Sound good? All right, so we're going to try to make it as hands-on as we can. When I open this blank form, you are welcome to open your own blank form and type in yours while I'm typing in the sample, okay? All right, so let's just open it up and take a look at the one that's already done. All right, can everybody see that? I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so we have some fill in the blanks. And one of the things I want you to notice is how short my answers are. How short are my answers here? Are they like 2 lines long? Are they whole sentences? What are my answers? My answers are little short phrases, aren't they? Why do you suppose that is? Why do you suppose I'm not writing whole sentences? Tamaya?
This is just the outline.
It's just an outline. That's right. If I were to ask you to write whole sentences, that would be just, why not just write the essay at that point, right? One of the reasons we use an outline is to have it, to plan it out and make sure that the essay is going to work before we put in a ton of effort to it. So an outline should not be a project that takes you an hour. Yes? How long do you think an outline should take you? LaTori, how long do you think an outline should take? Can you unmute and tell me that? I can see you answering.
Maybe 10 to 15 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Exactly. Why such a short amount of time?
Guess you're trying to get to the point, or
I love that answer. Yes, because you're just trying to get to the point. What you're trying to do is give it a test drive, right? How many of you have ever test driven a car? Anybody here ever test driven a car? Right. Do you get to drive it like to another city? How long is a test drive usually in a car? How long did you spend test driving a car?
I'd say about 15 minutes for
Right,
me.
10 or 15 minutes, right. So it's just a test drive. They're not going to let you drive it to Mobile and back, right? They just want you to see how it runs, what the pickup is like, what the turn radius feels like, how it feels to drive it, whether it's responsive or not, right? Just a quick thing. What we're trying to do with an outline is make sure that it's quick. Make sure that you have enough ideas to develop it into a whole essay, right? Before you sit down to write the whole essay. The other reason we do an outline, and this is one thing, although these answers are short, they are specific, right? This is something, I'm going to enable editing and I'm going to show you something I don't want to see. Right? I don't want to see these. What did I just do there? Why not? COVID has changed the way I think about life. Like, why is that not a great answer?
Because it's not.
Yeah, it's not very specific, right? It's like, how are you going to write about everything in your whole life that's changed because of COVID? COVID has changed so many things for us that trying to talk about them all isn't going to work well. So I just went with social gatherings, right? And I decided, I told you this already, I decided not to go for some of the gut wrenching things that we've gone through here, right? I'm not going to talk about the difficulties that were, totally upsetting. You can if you want to, absolutely. If this is a lot of people find that writing something out helps them heal from it. And if you want to take that route, you can. If you don't want to deal with that in an English class, I respect that too. Just grab something a little easier for your soul, and that's fine. What's wrong with this? Having a, say, first example. What's wrong with that? What's better about B right now from what is here? Haley, can you tell me why B is better than A right here on this sample?
Because it's being more specific and just saying first example.
Right, it's being more specific. When you do things like first example, second example, it's kind of like going to the store and being in the store and saying, hey Siri, put bread on my shopping list, right? Why not just get the bread, right? So when you're doing an outline and you say, I'll do my first example, you're putting the work off until later. But here's where you're supposed to be thinking of what your first example is going to be, right? So, and all you have to do is type in that you're going to talk about your husband's birthday. Just a quick example. It doesn't have to be a whole sentence. It can be a quick phrase, just something to remind you of what you plan to talk about. But get the thought in there. This is a place where your thoughts should be clear, and you get the thinking done so that you can use it later. So reading A, and it's 1, 2, 3. This is going to be one of your body paragraphs. This is going to turn into one of your body paragraphs. So what's my first body paragraph going to tell the reader about? Can you tell?
Your husband's birthday.
Yeah, you should be able to tell. So it's going to be about my husband's birthday. What did we do for his birthday during COVID?
Stayed at home.
Yep. Just twiddling our thumbs. What'd we do at home? Andrew, what'd we do when we stayed home?
Cook some steaks.
I cooked them some steaks, right? We usually invite some friends, but it was just us. But man, I can cook a filet mignon. I'm not helpless. Get that seared in some butter and put it in the oven. Absolutely. It's not Ruth's Chris, but it's not horrible, right? So we want to be specific, right? And we'll talk about how this turns into paragraphs here in a little bit. But we want to do three. So we've got our thesis sentence right here. The COVID pandemic has changed the way I think about blank, right? Mask wearing, other people's health, the way I do my job, something specific like that. And then you're going to think of three examples. So if you're thinking about how it's changed your life at work, you're thinking about an A, a B, and a C for examples about what changed at work. So let's say your cleaning procedures changed and how much work you have to do because other people are calling out sick all the time, and how much exposure you have at work, right? All three of those things probably changed, right? Or how you dress for work may have changed. And you grab one of those things for A, another one for B, and another one for C. The 1, 2s, and 3s remind us of some details, and these details will turn into like 3 or 4 sentences each, right? He's high risk, so we stayed home. I'm going to turn that into a few sentences, maybe let you know why he's high risk, what we usually do, why we decided to stay home, maybe say that our doctor advised him to be real careful, something like that. It's going to turn into a few sentences. When I say we usually get steak dinner, so I cooked steak, I might talk about what kind of steak I cooked or how I cooked it, what else we cooked to go with it, maybe add to it that I cooked him some birthday cake or something like that as well. That's just a reminder for myself to talk about what I cooked him, right? And then the last bit can turn into 3 or 4 sentences. I usually invite, it was just us. Was it lonely it being just us, or what did we do to make it fun? Right, so it's just a reminder. There are plenty of sentences I can add to make that come alive for you, like the games we played, or we watched a movie, or whatever it is that we did to make it fun being just us. I'm going to tell you about that, but it's just a quick reminder. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Hot dog. Now, I don't have to put every single thing I need to talk about. I don't need to talk about the steak and the potatoes and the vegetables and the cake and what we drank. I might put all that in the paragraph if I'm working on development, but all I need here is just a reminder about cooking something for him. Yeah? Okay. Then we plan our thesis statement, we plan our 3 body paragraphs, and then I've got a couple of questions here to help you plan your conclusion, right? What I've learned from this experience is blank, and that just helps you kind of formulate the thoughts for your conclusion. And what I want my reader to learn from my experience is, and then think about giving some advice to your reader. What I learned, and then what I want my reader to learn. And those might be a little bit different because what I learned might be a little different. Let's say I'm talking about having learned a lesson from a teenage pregnancy. What I learned might be different than what I want my reader to learn, because my reader might not be a teenage girl, right? So what I learned from the experience might be different than what I want somebody who's not me to learn from it. Does that make sense? Okay, so they might be a little different. It's always good to take it out of yourself and make it more than about just you. All right, so there's the model that you have to follow. If you want to print out this model or have it in front of you while you're working so that you can say, okay, hers looked like this, I'm going to get mine to look like that, you can. What we're going to do now is we're going to open our blank model and we're going to build one together. So if you want to use notebook paper, you can. If you want to open this document with me and type in it, you can. However you want to handle it, but let's have you making your outlines while I'm making this outline together, okay? All right, so in Blackboard, you have a blank outline, and we're going to fill it out together. And when I fill out mine, I'm going to give you a minute to think about yours, and you're going to write your answer down as well. And you can write it on notebook paper, you can write it in your computer, whatever you want to do. Okay, is everybody with me? You ready to do some hands-on? This is the hands-on part. This is what we would be doing in the classroom if you were in the classroom. So let's get moving on it. I'm going to check in with everybody and get your answers. So don't think I won't. If I say write down an answer, start writing it down, because I'm going to do a go around. We're going to talk about our answers. Right. Okay. This is what we like about in person, is that accountability. So that's coming with you even though it's via Zoom. So here we go. I'm going to choose teaching for right now. Okay, I'm going to say it's changed the way I think about teaching. So I want you to take a second and think about what it changed for you and write that down. Just finish that sentence. The COVID pandemic has changed the way I think about, and don't worry too much about making the phrasing sound great. Just chuck in your idea, okay? And when you're ready, I'm actually going to make y'all a little bit bigger here so I can see kind of everybody at once. Kimberly is here. All right, let's see if I can get more of you in at once. Move you over a little bit. That's more. Okay. I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can see it a little better. All right. All right. You can unmute and tell me as soon as you have an answer to that first question. COVID pandemic has changed the way I think about what? Go ahead and unmute and tell me what you're writing down.
It's changed how I think about school.
School. Fantastic. Write that down. Great. Who else has one already?
Everyday hygiene.
Everyday hygiene. Love it. Fantastic. Other answers? Lupita, what's your answer?
Ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. The COVID pandemic has changed the way I think about what? And what are you filling in the blank with?
It changed the way that they did in the airport. Like, you have to have a COVID test 3 days before. If you test negative, you can go. And if you test positive, you can't go. You have to stay quarantined for
Okay,
at least a week.
so what's your answer to this? Change the way I think about travel?
Yeah.
Then write that down for me, please. Anna, what about you? Anna, do you have one? Can you unmute and tell me what you're writing?
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, about school.
Great, fantastic. Larry, what about you?
I put job and
Your
work.
job. Fantastic, I like that. Dalton, what about you?
I answered everyday hygiene.
Oh,
earlier.
I already got you. Sorry about that. Let's see.
Inside.
Latori, have you changed? Are you still doing your job, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic. I like that. Who hasn't told? Yeah. What'd you put?
I put working the ways that you have to have different precautions now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about so work is all you need for this top thing, right? And we're going to break it down in A, B, and C. Has anybody not shared theirs yet? Who has one ready? Shout out to me.
I did work as well.
Fantastic. Yes, ma'am. I like it. Anybody else who hasn't shared theirs yet?
Socializing.
Socializing. I love it. Yes, ma'am. Anybody else have theirs? All right. We're going to work on A, B, and C next. These are the bigger ideas. We're going to dedicate a paragraph to each one of these ideas. This is how you're going to break it down. So, LaTori, you were talking about like hygiene practices at work, for one. That might be one thing that changed at work, or your safety precautions, or your cleaning procedures. So that's one thing to dedicate a paragraph to. I'm going to talk about every, I gotta get rid of some of that. I'm going to talk about realizing that I needed to give my students digital to access to everything at all times. There couldn't be a paper textbook, there couldn't be a handout, everything had to be digitally accessible, and that was a shift. I used to love my handouts, right? So I had to change that habit, right? Everything had to be digitally accessible. So that's one thing. I think another thing is going to be Zoom classes, because you know that I realized a whole lot about how I should have been offering that all along as a way for a student to come to class who can't come to the physical building, right? And then my ideas about my own office space changed as well. And we'll talk about that when I get down to the details. I haven't told you why any of these, right? I've got some things in mind, but I'm just breaking it down into some things about this, right? Some things that have changed. Digital access to everything, Zoom classes, office space. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to think about your A, B, and C. They're pretty specific, right? Each thing here is relatively specific, but I can talk with some details about each one. So when you have an A, B, and a C, shout them out. If you want to test out an A before you develop your B and C, you can test drive one and then do your B and C. But let's get those done and written. Yeah, you can either type them in or write them down, but let's get your A, B, and C written. Don't move on to the 1, 2, and 3 yet. We haven't modeled those yet. So A, B, and C right now. Notice they are all part of what changed about teaching for me. And when you have one, you can unmute and tell me what it is, and then I'll do a go around to catch anybody who hasn't volunteered.
We're doing our A, B, and C, like telling the C.
Yeah, I would like that.
Okay. So for my A, I said having to sanitize and clean more often than before.
Great.
For my B, I did having to work doubles. And then
Yep.
for my C, I said I'm more careful about how close in contact I come with complete strangers.
I love that. Those are 3 great ideas about how work changed for you. That's fantastic. Good thinking. I like that you just kept them simple, right? We're not explaining them yet. We'll explain them later. Andrew, what about you? What's changed about school for you? Got 3 categories about school that's changed?
School is more virtual than it was before.
Okay, a lot more virtual options. Good.
Trying to think.
What about the physicalness of going to school? You didn't used to have to wear a mask to school.
Yeah.
Right? And you used to be able to come to school if you weren't feeling super great. You could just drag yourself in, right? So those are some possibilities. Probably a lot more paper assignments getting turned in the past than there are now. Probably that digital stuff had an effect on you as well. You used to be able to handwrite something and turn it in, or we're not doing that anymore. Maybe your typing skills have improved, right? Okay, so think about some of those ideas. Think about the actual day and how your actual day has changed. Lupita, some of the things that you were explaining about can make their way into A, B, and C. So let's hear how some of the ways travel has changed for you. Testing before you fly might be one. What are the other 2? Lupita, can you unmute for me, please?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so what are the 3 things that have changed about travel for you? 3 categories. Testing before you fly, you told us that one, so get that written down. What else?
Getting vaccine.
Okay, getting vaccinated, good. What else?
And then wearing a mask while you're in the sea with everybody else and staying 6 feet apart from everybody.
Excellent, distancing and masking, fantastic. That'll sound real good. Anna, what about you? Anna Diaz, what are your A, B, and C?
Everything's online.
Yep,
And for B is having to wear the mask.
yep.
And the third one is canceling school activities.
Oh yeah, that stinks. I love it. But yeah, great ideas. Haley, what about you?
I said stand a distance.
Distancing, yeah. What else?
Virtual classes.
Virtual classes, yeah. These are not as good. What else?
Family gatherings.
Family gatherings. I like that. Okay. LaTori, what about you? 3 things that have changed about work, ma'am.
I put A, safety precautions, having to wash your hands for a certain period of time,
Mm-hmm.
having the right PPE, which is gloves, masks, and keeping your workstation clean.
Fantastic. All right. Dalton, what about you? What are your A, B, and C?
For like personal hygiene, I have disinfectant and cleanliness, and
Good.
then I have health awareness, and
Yep.
I have mask wearing and protocols.
I like that. Larry, what about you? What are your A, B, and C?
Right now I only have 2, but I put extra shifts and maintaining distance between workers or customers.
Okay, I like those. Those are real good. All right, so has anybody not told me their A, B, and C? Let me take a look. Michaela, have I heard your A, B, and C?
Yeah, I went first.
Awesome. Tamaya, have I heard your A, B, and C?
No, ma'am.
Let me hear them. What are they so far?
Campus classes, grades, and learning.
I love it. I love how succinctly you're breaking it down. Kimberly, what about you? What's your A, B, and C?
Mine was work, and my A, B, and C is having to wear full hazard suits. Having to do hygiene as soon as I walk in my house, and having to test twice a week.
I love that. Those are great. Esatu?
Yes. Okay. I didn't get to say my thesis, but for my thesis, I put economic shutdown.
Okay. So remember, this is about you. So how are you affected by the shutdown, the economic shutdown? We all were, but let's see if we can make sure that you're talking about you. So what happened to you in the shutdown? Did you lose a job? Did you?
Had to stay home.
Okay. All right. All right. So that's an A. And what's a B and a C?
Not interacting with others, I think.
Okay.
And have a mental health problem.
Okay, these all seem real big. They seem like each one of those A, B's, and C's seem like they could be a number 1 for you. Like having to stay home seems like it might be something you could talk about in 3 parts. So experiment with that a little bit. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us and we're going to model the A, B, and C. We've talked in class a lot about digital access to everything, so no more handouts. Okay, all quizzes and tests had to be remade to be digital. Right, so I couldn't just Xerox a test anymore. Had to make them all up, make them all new. right? And then I'm going to talk about how all classes and group work had to be digital, right? So just breaking it down a little bit further. And LaToya, you're already trying to do that, right? You're trying to, every time I ask you for one, you're trying to tell me about all of it, right? So this is going to come naturally to you. So the
Yes,
Zoom
ma'am.
classes are, they were new and weird at first, but then not horrible. Ways to share work, right? Like I'm doing now, we're modeling, we're sharing, we learned ways to share work. I'll say learned ways to share work with a space in there, space. And then say allows students to come to class even when not well, no daycare, no car, right? And that's what I ended up really liking about it, is that now my students can come more. We have fewer absence issues. And I'm going to even say, I'm going to make it shorter. Students come to class even when not well, no daycare, no car, right? Just keeping it simple. My office space, I'm going to tell a little story, and you can do that in some of your paragraphs if you want to. Like Lupita, if you're talking about travel, you can talk about an experience and say, I went to the airport and I did this. I'm going to say student exposed me to COVID in my office in March of 2020. Yeah, I know. I wasn't even thinking about it at that point. And then I'm going to say it reminded me of a student who exposed my baby to mumps when baby was 5 months old, right? You going to choose an activity? Good girl. That part of your work is done? God bless it. Go get it. All right. So reminded me of a student who exposed my baby to mumps when my baby was just 5 months old, and now my office is my safe space, and I meet with students in classrooms where we can distance or where there's a little less privacy, actually, because privacy is probably never good in a professional setting, right? All right. So I've actually, the whole thing has taught me that maybe my office space shouldn't be where I meet with students, for my safety, for their safety. You know, it's not very big. It's a tiny little office. There isn't exactly space to distance in there. So and I might talk there about how I've decided to use Zoom for office hours because they actually help. Hey, Satu, I'm seeing your chat. Those look pretty good. All right. I like the idea of the mental health, especially, and the impact of staying home and taking online classes and not having gatherings on one's mental health. That sounds really smart. What'd you find for your thing, Gracie? Can I see what it is? Oh, jumping jacks. Where are you going to do those? Here. Awesome. Not in this room. Do them in your playroom so you can see that they're good. Can you do them in the playroom? Awesome. You can do them to music if you want. All right, so I want to hear one of your sets of 1, 2, 3s. You don't have to work them all out right now, but I want to hear one set of 1, 2, 3s from you so I know you've got the right track. I'm going to start with LaToya on this one because I know she is ready to tell me about one. All right, LaToya, one of your A, B, and C. Tell me what the 1, 2, 3s are. And this is where you can just talk to me about it, right?
I could talk about the right PPE.
Okay, tell me about that.
when I first get in the building, we have like 3 stations that we have to go to. The first one is to get your temperature checked. And then the second one is to go to the and make sure you don't have COVID. You got to get your COVID test after the make sure you don't have a fever. And then the third station is where we have to go and make sure we have the proper gloves, the right N95 mask, and make sure the gown that we have on doesn't have any air coming in. And after that, that's when we can go to the floor.
That sounds exhausting.
And it is.
So y'all, when you're telling me about something like that, and it's exhausting, put in those words that tell me how exhausting it is. Put in those words that show me it's trying or tedious or difficult, right? If you're talking about how staying home affected your mental health, tell me that story. Tell me the story of a really bad day. I know my daughter's mental health is affected by trying to stay home, and virtual is hard for her. So when we set up a day for her to work at home, she'll have a task to do for half an hour, and then she'll have a play task that she can do for 15 minutes or so, something fun, something active, something outside if we can manage it, right? So that she can break up that day. But it's hard, right? It's really hard to be stuck at home for a lot of people. So talk about that and really get it to come alive. Andrew, do you have a 1, 2, and 3 for any of your A, B's, and C's?
I do for my first one. Classes, you can come to class even if you're not feeling well or you can't actually come. You can join it like through Zoom, which I actually like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, somebody might be sick or someone they can't actually go to school, but that way they can still.
You don't have to fall behind just because you got the sniffles, right? Yeah, and you don't have, and I hated dragging myself to work sick. I hated it. It was miserable to drag yourself to school sick. So now you don't have to. Now you can, stay under your blanket, have your tea, be near the bathroom, whatever it is you need to do, and still not miss a day of school, which is wonderful. It's really nice. It's an improvement. Yeah. All right, Tamaya, what about you?
You want just one?
One set of 1, 2, 3s. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the on-campus classes I had to go virtual.
Yep.
And I put hard for teachers to switch and hard to transition / keep up.
Yeah, some people really had a really hard time transitioning. Did you have teachers who struggled with transitioning? That's rough. All right. I try to be flexible. I try to realize that life can change on a dime. That's one thing I learned from COVID. The plan can change on a dime. You got to be flexible. You got to know how to make a change in a hurry. Yeah. Yeah. Miss Kimberly, what about you? You want to tell me about one set of 1, 2s, and 3s?
I'm still working on it.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Don't spend too long. Get them off the top of your head and let them roll. Anna Diaz, what about you? What do you have?
For the first one, since I did everything was online, teachers getting behind on grading.
Yeah.
As people would turn in their work late.
Yeah.
And difficulty learning it.
Yeah, it's harder to learn virtually because you feel like you're trying to teach yourself. Absolutely. Good 1, 2, 3. I like them. Lupita, what about you? Do you have one set of 1, 2s, and 3s? Can you unmute for me? There you go.
No, I'm still working on it.
Okay, I'll come back to you in a sec. Dalton?
I got on my disinfectant and cleanliness for
Mm-hmm.
my everyday hygiene. I have it felt pointless at first because I didn't understand the importance of it, and then my second one is I learned the importance and the risk of lack of hygiene,
Mm-hmm.
and then my third one was that I turned into a germaphobe.
I think that's happening to all of us a little bit. Yeah. The struggle is real. Yeah, I look at surfaces now as just one big cleaning challenge. Fantastic. Haley, what about you?
With social distance, I said keeping your distance from strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure your mask is worn properly.
Mm-hmm.
And third one, I said making sure that you don't go around people that you like don't be around all the time.
Right,
Like,
making sure you keep that bubble as small as it can be. All right. I think I think I trust you guys to remember the 3 and 4. Use the items above to complete this sentence. What I learned from this experience is, and I'm gonna go ahead and model these for you so that you can see. I'm gonna say you have to stay flexible and be ready to learn new methods right away. Like you can't be slow to learn a new method of teaching. If you want to be a teacher, you need to be ready to learn a new method in a day, right? And if you can't, honest to God, you shouldn't be teaching. And that sounds harsh, but that's how I feel about it. If you can't figure out a new way to do it in short notice, get out of the game because that's what it requires, right? And what I want my reader to learn from the experience is, since not all of you are teachers, I'm going to go ahead and think about this in terms of what I would want anybody to learn from it. Life can throw a curve. You have to meet those challenges face on, right? And you know, don't shy away from something just because it's a new way of doing it. Doesn't mean you have to quit. You gotta, life can throw you all sorts of curves. You're gonna have to just suck it up and do it, right? So that's what I would advise my reader to do, is just be ready to meet a challenge or a new way of doing things face on. Like y'all have. Y'all wanted an in-person class, but here we are on Zoom today. We're making it happen, right? And you're rolling with it and you're being flexible. It's a life skill right there, is it not? That is a life skill. So, all right. I'm actually going to stop the share for a second and touch base with you. Let's talk for a second about outlines. Is this outline harder or easier or about the same as other outlines you've been asked to do before? Michaela, I can tell you're talking, but I can't hear you yet. Can you unmute? You got to unmute.
Okay, I said it was definitely easier for me.
Good. That's the idea. If you make an outline too complicated or too rigid, nobody will use it. Mm-hmm. Right? So I want you to use outlines, right? So we got to make sure it's simple, right? Get your thesis statement written down, get your ABC, and then go back and do your 1, 2s, and 3s. The reason I teach you to do it thesis and then ABC and then go back and do the 1, 2, 3s is this. If you are working under time pressure, like you've got an exam, right, and you only have like 10 minutes to plan and you work a little slow, if you can at least get your thesis statement and what each body paragraph is going to be about, you can run from there, right? Planning out those details is awesome. It helps you remember what you were going to say. But in a pinch, if you can plan your thesis and your 3 main points, you'll be off and running because you know what you can talk about. Yeah. So never do less than that. Even if I don't require an outline, you should sit down and write out your thesis and your 3 main points, right? And just get that rolling. And that only took us like 5 minutes, right? It did not take us a long time to do this outline, did it?
No.
How many of you have finished your outline while I've been yapping at you? Yay! Fantastic. That's the idea. I love it when my students can get things done in class. All right, so that's our major assignment for this week. I am going to share and go over the quiz and the discussion board with you. Okay, so I'm going to go back into Blackboard here, and I'm actually going to close this and look at our overall week. You have a video to watch on how to write an essay outline. That's if you came in late, or you're struggling with it a little, or you need to go back over it at your own pace. Go ahead and watch that video. It also will help you for the quiz, right? Because there is a quiz on the writing process and outlines. Make sure if you have not watched that video on the writing process from week 2, that you review that before you take the quiz, okay? So we have a quiz on how to check grades and feedback. There's a video here, and we're gonna play this real quick. It's a very brief video. It's 4 minutes.
Hi, this is Dr. Swanberg. We are just finishing week 2, and I have done the grading of the on-time work for week 1. Late work from week 1 will be graded in week 3 with the week 2 work. So how to
Skipping
prepare
ahead.
for that quiz.
Skipping ahead.
You should open that and read the feedback. So when I
Okay, so I'm gonna back up
these
just a
have
little
been
bit.
graded. When there is a purple dialog box over here, that means there's feedback for you, and you should open that and read the feedback. So when I open that, I can see that there's feedback in that discussion, and sometimes I do need to click on it again, and sometimes it takes a minute to resolve. So I'm just going to pause this while it resolves. Awesome. Okay, so that resolved. It took a second, but be patient. Also, sometimes check your browser. This works better for me in Google than it does in Chrome, better than it works in Firefox. So check which browser you're using if your feedback isn't resolving well or quickly. And you can see that she gave me some feedback. She said, thanks for engaging in the board. Good insight and overall contribution. I agree with you. Degree works would definitely be much more user-friendly for sure. I'd also like how you brought up the grade feature. This is definitely a plus.
Are we supposed to be
So
hearing this
this
video?
is the feedback that I
Okay,
got
if
for
you,
that.
y'all can't hear it, thank you for shouting out that you weren't able to hear it. All right, so I'll let you watch that video on your own time. It walks you through how to get to your feedback. Now, it walks you through it on a computer rather than on a phone or a tablet. Definitely experiment with finding your feedback on different platforms. On my computer, I find it easier to get to my feedback from Chrome than from Firefox, was one of the things that it said. For some reason, a different browser made a difference in how accessible it was. So if you're having a hard time accessing it, let me know. But when there is that little purple box beside your grade, that means I've explained something to you or written you a note, okay? And that note, there might be a note on something where you earned 10 out of 10, but I put a little warning in there. It said, this is okay this time, but next time if you do this, it'll lower your grade. So please make sure that you are looking at those, yes? A lot of times on a draft, you can earn a 10 out of a 10 because it was a good draft, but I'm still giving you feedback that tells you how to not get a D on the final draft, and there's something to fix. So the feedback is really, really important, okay? If you got like a 5 out of a 10 instead of a 10 out of 10, the comments tell the feedback, the little box of feedback tells you why. I've had students who say, why did I get 5 out of a 10 on the discussion board? And I was like, well, did you read the feedback? Because I'm sure I told you. I'm not going to give you a low grade and not explain why, right? That's not teaching, because teaching means that you've made a mistake, I've told you what it is, and I've invited you to fix it, right? So please make sure you are reading your feedback. The quiz for this week, I'm going to open it and preview it with you. The quiz asks you to please upload a screenshot of your feedback from your diagnostic essay in week 1. If you are unsure how to take a screenshot on your device, I want you to go to Google and Google how to screenshot and the name of your device, because it's different on every single one. It's different on my HP ZBook than it was on my Surface Pro. So I can't tell you how to do it because your computer will probably do it a little tiny bit differently than mine. But a quick Google search, how do you screenshot on, and then tell them what kind of device you have, and it'll pop up instructions for how to do that screenshot. If you cannot figure out how to screenshot, you can take a picture of your device. That's fine too. The bottom line is I'd like to have a visual that you got there and you found it, okay? And it's just one question, and it's just that picture that you got to the feedback, not the grade, but the feedback that says, thank you for doing this, you're all set, I look forward to working with you, or whatever tiny little feedback there was, okay? Yes? If you did not do your discussion board, you're going to have a hard time doing this quiz. But you also had feedback from your discussion board. You can look in another place. If you didn't do your diagnostic and you have feedback somewhere else, you can use the feedback from somewhere else. Please make sure that that you're getting that feedback. All right. And that you're checking your feedback regularly. I put grades in every week for you, and I would expect you over the weekend each week to check your grade book and see how you're doing, right? That's why I put grades in there. I heard somebody complaining that their teachers were getting behind on their grading, and that's not acceptable. So I keep up with my grading, and I do it so that you can check it and learn from it and improve with it and use that feedback to get your very best grades. So I want to make sure you're rolling with that here. You have a quiz on the writing process and outlines. Let's take a quick look at the discussion board this week. And I want you in your own words, and please make sure that you are watching the video here. In your own words, explain how an outline is related to the essay you are writing. And then please answer these questions. Why does an outline help you succeed as a student? How does an outline help you succeed as a writer? Have you used outlines in the past? If so, have they helped you? If not, why have you avoided them? How is the outline model provided to you in this week's instructional materials similar or different to other outline models you've learned in the past? And then you have 3 responses to peers due. I had a bunch of people get 5s on their discussion board last week because they didn't respond to any of their peers. Make sure you're doing both halves of the assignment. 2 to 3 sentences that engage with the ideas your peer has expressed, add to their knowledge about how outlines work, give an example of how an outline has helped you, or give an example of why you have not found outlines useful in the past. And there's a reminder here that says, please make sure you've watched the instructional video on outlining. There are specific things I'm hoping to hear you chuck back to me, right? About how outlines connect to what you're writing and why we use them. So this isn't free form. This is checking to see that you've watched the instructional video on outlining and that you're absorbing that information. Yeah? Okay. So I am looking for specific answers here. They're covered in that video. Yeah? Okay. So you could take notes on that video and then have a lot to say here. That would be awesome. All right.